Happy Wednesday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. We'll talk about some decreasing rain chances as we head into the 4th of July on Friday. And then we'll talk about a little bit of the specifics, that big what if surrounding the second half of your weekend. And that's mainly because of that potential tropical disturbance. So we'll go over the latest updated chances of development with that system. So first things first, yesterday was yet another day of rain here in Central Georgia, but still not very widespread whatsoever. Most of the rain was found to the north of us. We can see some totals up here just to the northwest of us in Central Georgia, maybe about 2.5 inches of rain in areas of Butts County around the Jackson area. Up in Eatonton, over 3 inches of rain, and then this little patch right here on the county line of Hancock County, totaling about 2.5 inches. But most of our more populated areas, somewhere around like Forsyth, Macon, down to Warner Robins, maybe only a trace of rain or about 1/10 of an inch of rain. There were some spots in Taylor County that did have some storms in the picture, but those did weaken pretty substantially fairly quickly. About 1.5 inches of rain just to the west of Butler. Butler's found its fair share of rain over the last couple of days. That is definitely for certain. We take it down to Eastman, about 1/2 inch of rain, maybe some isolated spots down here around 1 inch just to the southwest of Abbeville. But most of our south and southeastern counties didn't find much in the way of rain, maybe only about a trace or a couple of 1/10 of an inch of rain. So let's talk about the high temperature yesterday. We got to 89 degrees, so not even to the 90-degree mark. 93 is that average high temperature, so we shot 4 under par in terms of that average high. But for our average low, right on par, a low of 71 degrees. 108 was the record high back in 2012. Once again, nowhere near that mark. In fact, falling about 19 degrees short of that number. And we didn't record any rain, is what the almanac is saying at Middle Georgia Regional Airport, but somehow that year departure number did go up. It was at 4.73 yesterday. Now it's at 4.95, or I guess the day before yesterday. So we did see maybe about 2/10 of an inch of rain. It's just maybe not recording it, so something's off with the sensor there. Sunrise yesterday, 6:31, sunset at 8:46. That sunset remains pretty consistent around the 8:46 time frame, but sunrise is continuing to creep later and later into the morning hours, which isn't a bad thing whatsoever. I'm sure many of you don't mind the late start to getting some sunshine. However, we haven't really seen much the past 2 mornings. It's been a predominantly gloomy atmosphere during the morning hours. But once we go closer to lunchtime, much of that cloud cover does continue to scatter out, and that leads to a warm up, which produces more rain chances each and every afternoon. But the big headline is that your rain chances are scattering out. We still see a little bit of organization with some rain, but we'll go over what the latest run of Future View has for later this afternoon. Looking dry for the 4th of July itself. Friday, we have a lot of confidence that the first day of your holiday weekend is going to be very conducive for some outdoor activities, enjoying some sunshine and such. But we are going to be staying hot all weekend long. Not quite to where we were at this time last week. That warranted some heat advisories, but still some feels-like numbers that can get up there around the triple-digit mark. So here's a look across the quad right now. We're seeing mostly cloudy to some partly cloudy skies across Central Georgia. Some dark bottoms of some clouds up here in downtown Macon as we look off to the north and the northeast. More scattering of some clouds. You're getting some peaks of that blue sky just right over here in the top left of this bottom left box at the Georgia National Fairgrounds. And it does look like our fair share of sunshine breaking through that cloud cover. Downtown Dublin and Warner Robins still seeing that scattered cloud cover as well. We're going to continue to watch this try to fizzle out over the next couple of hours, and that's going to contribute to more of a warm up. So where we currently stand temperature wise, the clouds aren't always a bad thing. Hovering around the 80-degree mark or mainly in the 70s. Lots of mid and upper 70s still on your temperature map. Still feels mighty nice down in Eastman at 75 degrees, as well as 75 in Thomaston. Still sitting at 74 degrees over in Butler. That temperature has not wavered much whatsoever over the course of this morning, and that's mainly because Butler had their fair share of fog. I did just show you that rainfall map. They probably had some standing water still left on the ground, so that produced that surface level fog, and that had to rise up into the atmosphere just a little bit. However, it's going to build into some denser cloud cover and give them a little bit more cloud cover than the rest of the bunch, so that's why their temperatures are probably still hovering a little bit cooler. But at the warmest, we see a couple of 81s down in Vidalia, Warner Robins, Macon, and up into Milledgeville. And I do imagine those numbers are probably feeling a little bit warmer, especially up in Milledgeville, where we still see this shade of dark green that is farther over to the east, but everyone has some kind of shade of dark green. So it doesn't quite look like that front has made its way down into central Georgia, because we're not seeing many areas of that light green. We're not seeing any of that slightly drier air, which will make all the difference in our forecast as we head throughout the next couple of days. So let's take a look at the humidity levels. It does get a lot splotchier the farther to the north, back up into Tennessee, portions of North Georgia. We're still going to look at maybe some of those humidity levels to go down into the light green areas, up in the north and northwestern portion of the state throughout today. But I think we're still going to kind of be locked in this muggy air mass for the rest of the entire state of Georgia, kind of giving you an outline of where that cold front does currently sit. We'll take a look at it in the surface map in just 1 second. Feels like numbers at the highest, we find a 90 over in Gordon, mid-80s in Macon and Warner Robins, 88 in McRae, 85 down in Vidalia, and 89, just 1 degree shy of that 90-degree mark over in Sandersville. But some areas, like Eastman, still feels like 75, still feels like 75 over in Thomaston. Butler, however, has their fair share of moisture because their current temperature was at 74 degrees. However, that feels like number is 10 degrees warmer at 84 degrees just before the 11 a.m. hour. Here's a look at your winds and your wind gusts. They are gustier farther down towards the south and the southeast. That's where you're seeing this blue shade, so a steady breeze, maybe upwards to about 5 to 8 miles per hour. But relatively calm winds farther up to the north and the northwest. We're still seeing maybe some sustained winds of about 5 miles per hour. A bit of a step up from this time in the past couple of days. Didn't see much in the way of a breeze. But when you factor in the humidity today, that feels like numbers. So once again, what the high is forecasted for today is around 91 degrees. Still anticipating the actual feels like temperatures to hover somewhere around 7 to 8 degrees warmer heading into the peak afternoon hours. Now, if we get some cloud cover, we get some rain, of course, those values are going to drop just a little bit, but we don't have as much in the way of rain today. So hopefully that is going to lead to some nice and dry conditions. However, it would contribute to a bit more of a warm up. So satellite and radar picture, we've been holding on to cloud cover in our southernmost counties virtually all morning long. Now starting to see more patchy cloud cover built into the forecast farther to the north. So that may be some of those foggy areas that we were referring to. Some of that surface level cloud cover is continuing to lift up into the sky, and the higher that it finally does get up into the sky, we can finally get a good image of it on the satellite and radar picture. So kind of hard to tell, but you can get a little bit of an indication of where the front does currently stand on our satellite and radar picture. Right now, it's actually currently draped across central Alabama, going up into the north and northwestern portions of the state of Georgia, where you kind of see the back edge of all of this cloud cover is going to be where the front is currently draped over. And we'll take it to the surface map, kind of following along exactly with that edge of cloud cover right now. So it does stretch all the way up into portions of the mid-Atlantic, getting up into the New England area. And it did even sprout a couple tornado warnings up in the Maryland area right around Chesapeake Bay yesterday. They were in more of an enhanced risk than we were for seeing some severe weather, and we didn't see anything in the way of severe weather yesterday. This boundary does become more stationary the farther west that you do travel, kind of sitting over Texas and northern Louisiana. That is probably going to continue to kick back into gear. We'll see this boundary turn into a stationary boundary at some points, indicating how slow it's really moving through the southeast corner of the United States. But the big thing is what's to follow, and that's high pressure settling in behind this frontal boundary, which is going to be a good bit of drier air, and that's going to inhibit our rain chances, because this time of year you need two things in order to get your afternoon rain chances. You need warm temperatures and you need surface moisture. Well, warm air rises and cool air sinks, so when we get those warmer temperatures, that surface heats up, a lot of rising motion occurs at the surface. And what's it going to lift? It's going to lift all that available moisture that we have. Once it reaches a certain point in the atmosphere, it condenses, allows for the formation of clouds, and the higher that it does continue to rise, the higher cloud tops that we can get, and that's going to produce more rainfall and maybe even some more intense weather in nature. So enough with the science lesson. Let's get down into some of the numbers. Let's talk about our averages for today so we can kind of base what the forecast is off of these averages. 93 and 71, just like yesterday. The record down a couple degrees, 103 back in 1954. So it looks like that very, very warm spell and back in 2012 finally came to an end at this period maybe about 13 years ago. Not seeing anything for our precipitation and our year departure just yet. And sunrise this morning was at 6:31, sunset 8:46. Virtually no changing on a lot of these numbers on the almanac. So we have a high temperature of 91 forecasted today. And I was saying it a good bit this morning because it is kind of misleading. You see 91 and then you pair it up with average this time of year, 93 degrees. Oh, okay, it's not that bad. Yes, it's still hot. It's the month of July. However, we're hovering below average, so we should be pretty good. Not going to be as hot of a day, but that humidity, of course, is going to make it feel many degrees warmer into the upper 90s, even flirting with the triple digits in some isolated areas. Now, I had this headline yesterday, but our front is still approaching. I was just mentioning to you how slow moving this frontal boundary is, and sometimes slow and steady can win that race. And in terms of winning the race, it's going to be a dry 4th of July. So it's really kind of timing out perfectly for the first day of the holiday weekend. But before we get there, we have to get through today and we have to get through tomorrow, where shower chances are going to still be in the forecast. And you can't rule out maybe a storm because we still have that muggy air that you can wear in the forecast. And like I was just telling you, warm temperatures, surface moisture, that rising motion can contribute to pop-up showers like we see here at the 3 p.m. hour on Future View. Let's continue to advance it more so into the evening hours. Still not much in the way of rain. Most of the rain is in fact found down to the south and the southeast, closer over by the coast of Georgia. But we continue to progress this as we go into the 10 p.m. hour. Still plenty of pop-up showers, maybe a storm or two into the nighttime hours. Not quite sure if I buy this though, because we are going to see a lot of this activity de-intensify in nature because we're losing the surface heating that we get in the afternoon. Future View does maintain that idea, but we may be a little bit earlier to see some of those showers and maybe low-end thunderstorms fall apart. I'm not really forecasting anything in the way of severe weather, although you definitely can't take your guard down. It's still hot, it's still humid, it's still the summertime. Can't rule out maybe an isolated severe storm or two, but I think everything is mainly going to be of the form of those run-of-the-mill typical summertime thunderstorms where things get a little bit gusty. You have your fair share of lightning, you have your heavy downpours, but not really looking at severe weather level threat gusty winds or severe weather level hail. So let's go into Thursday morning. Some sprinkles trying to hang out around in the forecast according to the latest model run. We'll see if that comes to fruition, but it does look like there's either some fog in the picture or we still have some cloud cover lingering from some showers that do try to hang around into the overnight hours. Thursday afternoon, 1 p.m. Once again, rain popping up into the picture. Still not widespread whatsoever. So very scattered like today's chance. We're still probably sitting on the southern end of this boundary, still kind of locked in this sector of hot and humid air, but the chances for rain do look a lot less for Thursday, indicating that maybe we start to already see some of that slightly drier air pushing down from the north, and then we go and transition into the 4th of July itself. Let's plan it out kind of time frame by time frame for the whole holiday on Friday. 8 a.m., maybe some clouds in the picture. Last Future View run didn't have any clouds. Nonetheless, there's plenty of breaks in those clouds, nothing in the way of rain. We go into the afternoon hours, not much in the way of rain still. Most of the rain is going to be secluded off the coast of Georgia and areas on the coast of South Carolina. We continue into the afternoon hours. Now it's trying to put some showers, maybe even a storm or two in our south and our southeasternmost counties. That could occur if we do get an ample sea breeze off the Atlantic coast. So maybe the chance for seeing a low-end thunderstorm as we go into Friday. But overall, I do believe we're going to remain mostly dry. Really, the forecast for your Thursday and Friday are all going to depend on how much drier air does push down into central Georgia by the time we head into the weekend. And I do believe that Future View not necessarily picking up on that slightly drier air as much as it was this morning. I'm more keen to believe that, hey, I think that slightly drier air is going to dry the atmosphere out, and we will remain mostly sunny with about a 10% chance of a light shower or a sprinkle. But we'll continue to see how that resolves itself over the next couple of days leading into the 4th of July. I still think you're looking good to go for all of your outdoor plans. So now let's go into the day one storm outlook. No outlook here in central Georgia. Like I said, you still can't rule out maybe seeing a strong or a severe thunderstorm, but the chances do look very slim to none. But they are still there. So of course, if you get a warning popping up over maybe where you are, maybe out visiting an office, somewhere that you are on your morning commute for work, or just kind of finishing out this work week. Just make sure to head indoors if you do receive anything in the way of a severe thunderstorm warning, but don't quite think that you're going to catch that today. We're not in a risk for severe weather, not in a risk for severe weather on Thursday. And we continue this pattern all the way to Friday, so nothing looks very organized that's going to be coming through. We still have that front, and it can act as a focal point for where some rain does form, but still predominantly very scattered in nature, very isolated in nature, meaning one end of the county could see rain, and then the other end of the county where you may be located could just be dealing with some partly cloudy skies and just seeing some dark clouds off in the distance. Let's talk about the excessive rainfall outlook. This not going to have as much of an impact, but we still are in an excessive rainfall outlook for the rest of today. Isolated flash flooding could occur all over central Georgia, and if I was to make this valid through Thursday, the day 2 outlook, it would encompass these areas that are left out of this marginal risk throughout today. So everyone in central Georgia, if you are to get a heavy downpour that kind of sits over the same area, of course, isolated flash flooding is going to be possible. We saw it last Friday night when we had a big cluster of a thunderstorm sitting over parts of Crawford County, Peach County, Bibb County, and it did produce a flash flood warning in those counties. But even just directly over to the east, not much rain was to be found in many areas of Warner Robins and Houston County. I remember coming home from the movies on Friday night, you were kind of seeing a dividing line. You would look up the hill to Highway 41, heading towards I-75, and it was definitely a downpour. You saw your fair share of water on the ground, the street lights reflecting off of any of that kind of shimmer that you do have on the ground. But a little bit farther to the east on I-75, it was still completely dry. So kind of showing you the dividing lines and the very fine edges that some of these rain showers can have. But just making you aware of the potential impacts. It is definitely more likely than not. You're not going to have to worry about severe weather, isolated flash flooding whatsoever, but it is still a possibility. So let's go to your pool forecast. It's another great day to combat the heat. A high of 91, still feeling like the mid and upper 90s, maybe even near the triple digits in some areas. Slimmer rain chances than yesterday, so it's looking a lot better for that pool forecast. But of course, when thunder roars, be sure to head indoors. Not going to want to be out at the pool when there is lightning nearby. So the next 3 days, what does your forecast shape up like? 91 and 92 for highs Wednesday and Thursday. Still a 30% chance of seeing a shower or a storm. Now with the latest model run of Future View, I would probably bump this up to 20%, but I'm not banking on just one individual model run. I still think we are going to be predominantly dry for your 4th of July forecast. We'll even see if Future View still has a couple of those low-end thunderstorms in our southeastern counties by the next model run that comes out later when Ben Jones is doing the evening forecast. But you did notice that uptick in temperatures to 94 degrees. We'll talk more about that after we get into your travel forecast. Because today is going to be the second day in a row that we do see increased traffic on the road. A lot of folks are probably taking tomorrow off of work. A lot of folks have Friday off of work, but maybe many people are going to hit the road later this evening, and we are expecting more traffic than normal, mainly between the 3 and the 7 p.m. hours. But then once you get into tomorrow, we're expecting even more of an uptick in some of that heavy traffic. People taking July 3rd off, already heading out of town for any plans, and that traffic could start to get congested at the noon hour all the way into the 8 p.m. hour. Thursday, not the best day to travel. However, if you are going to travel, be sure to budget for some more time on the roads, especially on the interstates. That's mainly where this travel forecast is going to be for. Taking some back roads will probably eliminate a lot of that heavy traffic that you could run into. Light traffic still expected on the 4th of July itself. I imagine many folks, like myself, are probably going to be heading out of town on the 4th because they do have the day off of work, maybe getting an early start to the day. But then we'll see a better uptick on Saturday and Sunday compared to the 4th itself. Sunday also going to be that really bad traffic day. And then some folks still heading back from a weekend trip on Monday will still expect more than average your typical traffic right there. And mainly the afternoon into evening hours is going to be when that traffic is a little bit more congested. So afternoon highs, we do see a warming trend over the next 3 days, up to 94 on the 4th itself. But then the temperatures are back down, trying to go back closer below average, maybe closer to the 90-degree mark, and that may be indicating some better rain chances towards Saturday and Sunday. But taking a look at the humidity, this is a good telltale for our rain chances as well. Right now, we're seeing a steady downtick between today and all the way into Thursday. So we should start to feel that slightly drier air by this time tomorrow. And then as we go into Friday and Saturday, humidity fluctuating a little bit, but mainly the light green color hopefully will be present. You'll still have some isolated areas of the dark green color. But then by the time we get to Saturday, this muggy meter is hinting at another reinforcing push of some of that drier air into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. This is definitely very subject to change, not just because it's on the far right side of this muggy meter. And we do tell you that there's always a little bit of uncertainty with this, but it's going to be because we're still monitoring what's going on down to the south of us. But before we get there, let's take a look at some of the feels like temperatures here on Future View. Low to mid 90s throughout this afternoon. That's already at 7 p.m., so getting into dinner time. We go into tomorrow afternoon, feels like numbers in the mid 90s. There's a flash of pink there, so we could see some isolated areas of feels like temperatures near the triple digits mark. And a very similar story for your Friday afternoon as well for the 4th of July itself. I do believe that the warmer those temperatures do get, of course, you may think, oh, okay, the heat indices, they're going to get warmer along with it. However, it is going to maybe still feel virtually the same each and every day because that downtick in humidity isn't going to have as much of a role in the feels like numbers, but we are going to see a slight rise in the temperatures to kind of combat against that. So still virtually feeling the same each and every day for the next 3 days. And I do imagine we'll continue that as we go into Saturday and Sunday as well. So now let's talk about the tropics first before we get into your long range models. We still have this area of potential development down to the south and the southeast of us. You can see that there is still a slim area over here on the west end of this orange shaded area in the northeast Gulf, but most of this does find itself now in the Atlantic Ocean as opposed to kind of half and half between the Gulf and the Atlantic. So the number one, there's greater confidence that whatever does form is going to try to organize over in the western Atlantic, the warm waters off the coast of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. And we have seen a little bit of an uptick over the last couple of days. It was 20% 2 days ago. Yesterday, this time, it was around 30% chance of developing over the next 7 days. Well, now it's up to 40%. And I know it does say the next 7 days, but potential development is just really going to happen sometime Saturday into Sunday is what we're looking at from most of the model runs, but that's past the initial window that you do see right there, the next 2 days. So once we get that into view, Saturday and Sunday into view, we'll probably start to see the chances of developing over the next 2 days to increase. But we are seeing a steady uptick, so we're not seeing a downtick, not seeing more confidence that something isn't going to form. If anything, we are seeing more confidence that something is going to try to slightly organize, although this area that is outlined by the National Hurricane Center has outlined the fact that significant development is not expected. So what that means is we may get a named storm, but that's still only getting some organized gusty winds of about 39 miles per hour. However, if we do fall below that threshold, won't get a named storm, but I think that's kind of the max potential for this potential tropical system. So let's go into the long range models. We'll talk about the timestamp in just 1 second and I'll move my head, but you can see that there is pretty good agreement that they're starting to get some kind of circulation over there off the eastern coast of Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. And that's mainly indicated by some of these yellows and some of these red colors that you do see. So maybe some counterclockwise rotation. That's the other thing. You're seeing this on the northern side of what could be the center of circulation right here. That counterclockwise rotation, textbook with these tropical systems. So this is Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. And take a look at that green shade. Okay, that does creep a little bit inland, maybe into portions of central Georgia, but this is just one model, the GFS right here, hinting at maybe an outer band of precipitation trying to organize and trying to push onshore. This is the only model that's saying that. The European in blue, you can find it shaded under this green shade that we see, but it's not under this green color right here. So that's a little subject to change, not going to bank everything on the GFS model just saying that, oh, okay, there's an outer band of precipitation that's going to surge into central Georgia Saturday afternoon. Still maintaining that there's probably pretty slim rain chances for your Saturday afternoon. But then the system does continue to move closer and closer onshore. It's looking like if it is to organize and if it is to make a potential landfall, maybe on the Atlantic coast of South Carolina, getting up into North Carolina. This is Sunday at 4 a.m., so obviously many of you are going to be fast asleep at this time. But if it does do this, it's going to send some moisture onto the eastern Atlantic coast of the United States. Does that make it into the state of Georgia or central Georgia? That still remains to be seen. But the consensus is if this forms over here out in the East Atlantic, then of course eastern coastal areas of Georgia, South Carolina, even maybe as far north as North Carolina, and including that Atlantic coast of Florida, Jacksonville, Daytona Beach, St. Augustine, getting into all of those areas. Probably shaping up to be a pretty messy forecast. It's looking better and better for the Panhandle. So if you have plans for travel this weekend for the holiday down in Panama City, Destin, over in Pensacola, your forecast is looking a lot better than it does on the other side of the state of Florida. So this is Sunday at 10 p.m. Whatever does try to move on shore is going to very quickly disorganize. So this is 10 p.m. right here, and then you're seeing a lot of active weather up to the north and northwest of us. Maybe some sort of a frontal boundary trying to push in, but not a whole lot of agreement on these long-range models with that. And a lot of this moisture does continue to ride up the Atlantic coast. State of Georgia is really getting left out of anything in the way of rain over the course of this weekend into the beginning of next week, which is not a bad thing whatsoever, but a lot of folks will not be in central Georgia this weekend. So kind of use this forecast as you will, especially if you're traveling on eastern Atlantic coastal areas of the states of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Florida. But the farther and farther that you get closer back to home, the forecast is shaping up a little bit better. Long range continuing on into 4 p.m. on Tuesday, still looking predominantly dry here in the state of Georgia. And then we go into Wednesday at 4 p.m. Still pretty dry down here in the southeast. Lots of active weather up to the north and the northwest of us, but don't see really any good indication that another big scale weather system is going to impact us. And it looks like that we're seeing good agreement that whatever blob of moisture, disorganized tropical moisture, is going to continue to move back out towards the Atlantic as we do progress into the middle of next week. So here's a look at your hurricane basin names for the Atlantic hurricane season. Tropical storm Andrea formed for about 12 hours in the North Atlantic Ocean. That was a fish storm, didn't impact any land masses, and then it did dissipate very quickly in those cooler waters of the North Atlantic. Then Tropical Storm Barry got its name down in the Gulf over in the Bay of Campeche, and then you can see Barry got crossed off the list. It had a very short lifespan as well. It organized right off the coast of Mexico, moved inland into that dry desert terrain, and it did weaken very quickly as well. So that's two named storms. Didn't really have too many impacts. Some coastal and some inland flooding in that desert terrain of eastern Mexico. So the next name would be Chantal. If this system is to get its act together, then Chantal would be the name that it does get, that C letter name. No other areas that we're monitoring for potential development in the Atlantic basin for hurricane season. So we would get the C letter crossed off the list if that were to happen. And another good reminder that we're entering the month of July, so we're just over a month into the 2025 hurricane season. We're still very early into tropical activity, still not seeing much activity or the frequency of activity much whatsoever. So we're getting closer and closer to this timestamp right here, this July 10th timestamp. So we will start to see a little bit of a steady uptick as we go into the next week or so. But like I said, we're not seeing much in the way of tropical activity. A lot of the long-range forecasts don't have anything else having the potential for development over the course of the next week or two, all the way into the middle of July, which is not bad news whatsoever. But the closer and closer we get to that September 10th mark, which is the official peak of the season, that's when we typically see the most frequency of potential areas of development, named storms. So we'll really have to start looking all over the Atlantic, the Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf for potential areas of development that want to get their act together, because the ocean waters are going to continue to warm all the way up into that point. And then once you get past September 10th, they start to transition into a cooler season. The water temperatures will start to cool off a little bit, but they're only going to warm up until then. And again, that season began on June 1st, and it will officially end on November 30th. Something to look forward to, of course, but that is still a long ways away. I definitely believe we have our fair share of tropical activity to cover before we get there. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. Temperatures increasing into 4th of July in light of lesser rain chances. Then the rain chances increase for Saturday and Sunday, but they're still written in pencil. That's mainly just due to the fact that we could see a potential tropical disturbance get its act together. We could see some tropical moisture push inland, and that would increase the rain chances. Or we could see the system not want to get its act together, and that would decrease the rain chances. But it does look like Sunday into Monday, maybe your next best shot at seeing some rain, and then we're back to the typical run-of-the-mill summertime thunderstorms or just mainly some scattered showers in nature. But overall, still looking like a predominantly dry July 4th forecast, so keep your outdoor plans a go. Well, that will do it for the extended forecast. We have a hard out, and we'll take you over to Plains, Georgia now.